So I'm just going to do the land acknowledgement. And so the land that I am currently on, which is known today as Mississauga, Ontario, it's the territory that belonged to the several nations, including Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat and the Wyandot nations. This territory is covered by Treaty 13A. So, as someone whose parents immigrated to what is known as today as Canada, I was brought up in the current Canadian system, and I've always felt that the histories of the Indigenous peoples wasn't fully explained. I mainly just learned about the fur trading. That was about it in school. Um, and perhaps the reason for this is that some of the history is pretty difficult to confront. It involves violence, cruelty, loss, displacement, or maybe perhaps it's simply it's easier to ignore. The only problem with ignoring history is that we can't truly learn, grow, and improve if we don't know what really happened. So I had a chance to reflect on these histories and the current experiences of the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island while doing this land acknowledgement. And I am very grateful to the caretakers who protected and cared for it, and those who continue to do it today. Their knowledge, their generosity, it's helped preserve the clean water that we depend on, the trees and air that give us life, like actual oxygen, the land that we need to sustain us, really like growing our food. And I mean, all human beings rely on nature to survive. So, and today, I always hear in the news what's happening, and it's becoming harder and harder for me to accept the ways in which we continue to treat the land. In the, I guess, pursuit of economic growth, we're extracting more natural resources, we're building infrastructure like pipelines, data centers, but we aren't fully considering their environmental consequences. Like a lot of protections were removed. But all these choices, they have lasting impacts on our air, our water, the land, ecosystems. And I believe that alongside our Indigenous neighbors, every non-Indigenous person also has a role to play in continuing to care for the land and respect the relationship between the people and the rest of the natural world. So many people today are joining this webinar from different parts of the country. I hope we can take a moment and acknowledge the history, learn from the people who cared for it, and also work together to protect it for future generations. So today we're here to listen to the speakers of Grassy Narrows First Nations and the ongoing Mercury crisis. At the end of the webinar, we will discuss the actions that we can take to support Grassy Narrows First Nations, as well as actions to support the First Nations that were affected by the wildfires in British Columbia and Ontario that just happened a few months ago, as well as the First Nations communities in the reserves, where they still don't have the human right to safe drinking water. Like it's not fully recognized. So I strongly recommend that we all take a moment to think about how we can help to support Indigenous organizations, First Nations, and activist groups who are fighting for these causes. Right now, I'd like to introduce Nafisa, the chair of the specialist team of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, who will facilitate the webinar. And as a reminder, further information on how to support Grassy Narrows First Nations will be sent to everyone who registered for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette, for that beautiful acknowledgement, and also, of course, for introducing me. And I would also like to thank all the people who are both panelists here and who worked in the background to make this webinar possible. Welcome, everybody. This is the first webinar that's being hosted by the specialist team for the rights of Indigenous peoples at Amnesty International Canada. I'm Nafisa. I won't take up too much time because I want to give Judy, our guest speaker from Grassy Narrows, the time to do the presentation and also to share about Grassy's story as well. So I will quickly give her an introduction, after which I will pass things over to Judy. So Judy Da Silva is a Grassy Narrows community member and a mother to 5 children. They help her have the positive energy to continue to look for justice and for the solution to the mercury poisoning of the river system in Grassy Narrows and in Mother Earth. She recently was awarded the Michael Sattler Peace Prize in Germany and Human Rights Watch Award in Toronto, Art Manuel Environmental Award, and Wilfrid Laurier Honorary Doctorate in recognition of her lifelong work to advocate for her community members for environmental protection and using peaceful, nonviolent, direct actions. This is something I think we can all learn from. Judy suffers from the effects of mercury poisoning. She works in the band office of her community as an environmental health coordinator. So I will stop talking myself right now. I will pass things over to Judy. Um, and thank you for joining us as well, Judy. Thank you. There we go.
I'm I'm talking to you from the wigwam, and this is our sacred space, one of our historical sacred spaces on Shopskusagang Damnishnabek, which is in the territory of Grassy Narrows. And this is actually the blockade site where we started a blockade here in 2002. And I have a PowerPoint mostly because a lot of people haven't heard about Grassy Narrows. And I don't know if you can start well,
Yeah,
first, I guess I wanted, because you guys are the organizers, but I wanted to play a short video. And Nafisa, you can start that
yes.
short video. It gives a really compressed view of the blockade site where I am right now.
I just wanted to double check that everybody can see the screen. If you cannot, please let us know in the chat, and we will make sure that a link is provided so you can watch it on your own time as we are playing it over here as well.
For 20 years, Grassy Narrows has blockaded.
Early in December, about 40 First Nation residents blocked logging roads to protect their hunting, trapping, and fishing rights.
Demonstrated.
That's why they're afraid, because they know what they're doing to us is wrong.
Drummed. Marched. Built alliances. We are fighting against industrial logging and mining, racism and colonialism, and we are fighting for Indigenous freedom, land back, and protecting the sources of life. "20 years ago, we began a blockade. We kicked out the world's largest newsprint company, protected 15 million trees from being cut, and kept all industry out of our 7,000 square kilometer territory. We revived our ceremonies and helped build a movement. But Ontario continues to propose industrial logging and mining on our land against our will. We will never back down. We will sing and dance and fight.
As long as the rivers flow and the sweet grass grows in the sunshine.
This always makes me cry. It just shows the the strength of the people that have been fighting this fight for so long. And Chrissy Isaacs, who's the young girl in there, she was 21 at that time, when she was speaking there, and she just messaged me. She said she's gonna come join us, so she'll be here pretty soon, and she'll talk also. But I wanted to share with you the PowerPoint, and it's not really to show you like a academic kind of setting. It's just for you to give a face to the people of why we fight so hard. So if you could start the PowerPoint. This is just the Grassy Narrows Lake, and I wanted to show you geographically where we are. Toronto's the purple thing there, and Grassy's the the orange thing there. So we're kind of in the center of Turtle Island, they call it. And the next slide shows Grassy Narrows, amongst 28 First Nations that surround Kenora, Ontario. Kenora, Ontario is like really close to the Manitoba border, so we're way at the end of Ontario, and Ontario is one of the biggest provinces in Canada, and a lot of resources, a lot of fresh water, and in our area is they call it the land of 10,000 lakes. So we're surrounded by fresh water and minerals and trees. Could go to the next slide. This is showing one of our late elders, Steve Fobister Sr. He passed away. They said it was Lou Gehrig's disease, and then they said it was ALS, and then but anyways, he said it was mercury poisoning. But the guy behind him is Fred Land, and that's one of Chrissy's grandpas, and just showing you the different faces. So next one. I'm not going to go technically impacts of mercury poisoning. You can check out those slides after, so go to the next one. This is just a little tiny girl that I think it was actually Amnesty International that came to Grassy, and they were taking a lot of photos, and it was during the powwow, and this little tiny girl was in the water, and they captured her being in the water. Next slide. And this kind of throws me off because I was talking about mercury poisoning, but they're saying they're gonna bury nuclear waste. It's about 200 kilometers upstream of Grassy Narrows, and they said they're gonna build the mine, the where they're gonna bury the waste in about a mile into the earth. And the first 6 boreholes they tested, the rock crumbled, so they're doing 12 more boreholes to find like a more stable rock, but so far it's not working, and because it's surrounded by water. So this is one of our threats, being Anishinaabe on the land, is the nuclear waste that we face. And I guess it's from Southern Ontario, but somebody told me you guys are in a lot of danger because there's actually a lot of nuclear waste in the UK and Germany, and I guess Europe, and then also in California and New York, and they don't know where to put their nuclear waste, so we're going to be a target site for that. So next slide. These are when we did the anti-nuclear. Oh, this is no mining and no nuclear waste on Anishinaabe territory. Just showing you our people as they do protests, never-ending protests all the time, just trying to protect the land. Next slide. This is at the Dryden Mill, and this is when we go there. We usually on World Water Day, March 22, and we're like a little mosquito, like with this big, huge industry all over Turtle Island that pulls logs from the forest, and we do our little tiny protest, and we just say shut it down. That's the only thing that's gonna help our people with the mercury poisoning. And if they could shut down that mill, it will help us a whole lot. But the government, that's what funds their coffers, is these industries that are all over Turtle Island. Next slide. This is some allies that come to Grassy. A group just left a couple weekends ago, and they come to Grassy and they just spend time with us, and they find out what Grassy's all about. And these are the CPTers. They used to be called Christian Peacemaker Teams, but now they're called Community Peacemaker Teams. And they were here at the blockade when we started the blockade, and they've been still involved with us even through COVID. They were very supportive. So this is just showing you some allies and how they're very important to our stand, because in Grassy Narrows there's only 800 people that live in the reserve, and there's 2,000 band members, but they live all over Turtle Island. Next slide. These are just some documents that, like people come. PSAC is one of them, Public Service Alliance of Canada, and they've been very instrumental in supporting Grassy Narrows and amplifying our voice. And the Japanese people from Japan came to Grassy. So it's just all these people that, without them, our voices would be very, very quiet. So next slide. Dr. David Suzuki came to Grassy Narrows, and he went fishing. And he's an amazing human being, and he spent time with us. Amnesty International is here. Thirsty for Justice is a video you can Google, and it's with PSAC and talks about the water emergency in Grassy. And next slide. This is a ceremony. Is one of our ways of being strong, and very, very important, because like this weekend, 28, 29, 30, 31, we're doing this medicine picking camp, and we sing our songs. We do full moon ceremony on Friday. We're going to do full moon ceremony, and I heard there's going to be a partial lunar eclipse, so it's going to be very powerful. And these are just one of the ways we keep up our strength as Nishnabeg, is doing the ceremonies that we know, and then singing songs, empowering our people using song. And then in the bottom right corner, you see there's a campfire and tarp all around. My family is crazy. But anyways, when it's like minus 25, they say, hey, let's go do a hot dog roast. And we come out here at the blockade site, and they make a fire, and then they freeze, but we cook our hot dogs, and we have campfire tea, and it just to kind of like not get stuck in being in our houses, cozy, warm, comfortable place, but we take ourselves out in the elements to strengthen our heart, strengthen our spirit. So just a middle picture. I won't stay too long on this slide, but the middle picture is a 14-year-old girl. It was really freezing cold outside, and we needed to get the root, gondamu it's called, and it's one of our powerful medicines. And she's a sturgeon clan, and everybody's kind of tiptoeing, like trying to pull the roots, and she just took like took her clothes off and just jumped in the icy cold water, and she grabbed that root, and then she went and got more roots, and then the women said, "Hey, if she could do it, I could do it." And you could just hear a bunch of people screaming as they went in the water, but just showing our resilience, our strength as Nishnabek. Okay, next slide. I think the next few slides will show like the protests we've done in Toronto. This is the art of Isaac Murdoch. He's a really well-known artist, and he made that design. I just love that design. And the girl in the yellow is Jian Turtle, and Jian Turtle. When we said we need some youth to speak up, and if you look, we may be able to share that that um that part of the video where she speaks, and it's just so strong, like how we just put her on the spot to say we need a youth to speak, and she went up and she just started speaking from her heart. And so these young people, like, they may not live every day as protesters or as like protecting the land and water because they're busy in school, whatever, but when she spoke, it shows that they do get it. They get the messaging that we've been living is to protect the land and water. And behind is wheelchairs, and it's usually a bunch of this not disabled people, but it's the Mercury sufferers, and they come to these protests. We're gonna have a bus load of people coming to Toronto, and they travel thousands of miles to come and protest for one day. And that's when, like, we really count on the supporters in Toronto to show up and help us walk. And next slide. This is I guess we kind of get creative, like the organizers in Toronto. They're very smart people, and they figured things out, like how to make a really powerful image, powerful messaging, trying to help us, like, amplify that message to stop the mercury poisoning, to stop resource extraction, protect water. And this is one, it was a huge banner. And then I think they had actually, like, at one point they had a helicopter fly over Queen's Park, and they took like a photo of the masses of people or something. So this is just an example of the ideas they come up with. Okay, next slide. More banners, more pictures, and showing like the protests and the banners that we use. And that little guy in the blue, he lives in Grassy. He's holding that water's life. Next slide. More banners, more pictures of my people. Next slide. This is a really beautiful, powerful image. So when we do the river run, the reason why I call it river run is just like we mimic the flow of the water. So we use a lot of blue. So if you do come to the river run in Toronto, September 23, try and wear blue, because we try and look like we're flowing through the waters of, I mean, the streets of Toronto like water. And that's part of the imagery. So next slide. These are just more images. Next slide. These are young people. Well, they're older now, but back then they're they walked to Ottawa, and they wanted to, I guess it's just like a part of them that wanted to do something. So they walked to Ottawa, and they did relay. So it'd be like somebody'd walk 10 kilometers, and the next person would hop in the vehicle, and the next person walk 10, or so on. Like till they made it to Ottawa. And each time each city would greet them. First it was like a slow start where nobody knew what they were doing. Till they got to Ottawa, it's like a whole bunch of people was greeting them. Next slide. These are the accomplishments. The river cleanup fund that came from ex-premier Kathleen Wynne. We got 80,000. I think it's 85 million dollars. And the Mercury care home, we got it's being built right now as we speak. I saw an updated photo of it that it's going really well. Brett Cardinal is the architect, and my people helped come up with the design, and then Brett Cardinal was the architect that put it together. And so we've done a lot of things, but we're still not where we want to be. These are just like some accomplishments of great injustice to my people. Next slide. Just some articles, and that's the wigwam I'm in right now. Is that dome-looking thing? That's where I am right now. And oh, there's a Mercury care home. I guess you could see the design. That's how it's gonna look. It's halfway done. It's gonna take a couple more years before it's fully usable. Next slide. That's a Mercury care home. That's where it's at. It's 200 feet long, 22 rooms, and it's by the water, as the elders had wanted, as the people had wanted, and they wanted to see the sunrise and the sunset, and they're going to be able to see that. Next slide. Still Mercury Care Home. Next slide. These are our demands. The green means like we got that fund, the river cleanup fund, the Mercury home. And now when we come to Toronto, we'll be seeking fair compensation and no logging or mining, restore culture, no nuclear waste. So if you want to find out more, you can go to freegrassy.net. And there's a lot of documents in there. There's a lot of articles in there. There's a lot of photos. And it's a site that we use, like there'll probably be a space there for if people want to come to the river run, they can RSVP there. So that's the freegrassy.net. Next slide, if there's any. If not, that's the end. Okay, there's more slides. Compensation for all. So these are some people compensate Grassy Narrows, Ford will compensate Grassy Narrows. So Toronto supporters have been bird dogging Doug Ford in Toronto, and Chrissy Isaacs even went there, and then that's when Carney made some kind of comment about I can outlast her. So there was a big media thing about that, about his comment saying that while she was yelling, justice for Grassy Narrows. So you can probably Google that. Carney and Chrissy Isaacs, and then all these videos will pop up of how Carney made that callous remark. And that's what we're used to. We're used to that kind of attitude and behavior from the government, and which is why we go and protest, because we depend on people like you and mainstream Canadian society to have the humanity in their hearts to say, hey, Grassy's been poisoned. People are dying. There's a higher suicidal tendencies in Grassy. Hey, you guys shut down the mill. That's when we need that kind of amplification of those messaging from you guys, and it helps us push the government, because a lot of times they don't give a shit about us. They don't care about us. So it's usually your voices that they listen to, and your family. When you go have your dinners with your family, and you tell them about Grassy Narrows and the injustice we've had to endure since 1962. 10 tons of mercury been dumped, and it's still in the river system. A total disregard of human life. Next slide, if there's any. So these are just more photos. Shut It Down. That's Chickadee Richard by Sault Ste. Marie. There's this thing says, this is Indian land. These are kids on the right. We were at the Dryden Mill, and at first it wasn't, we didn't think of hazmat suits, but then when we were sitting there, it smelled really bad, and then you could feel like raindrops on your face, like a fine mist. And these kids started getting scared. So we actually went and got hazmat suits and masks, and then we took this photo, and it's very powerful. Next slide. And these are river run, like, I guess, like what you can do in the river run: organize a delegation, one-to-one calls to members, share on socials, send a save the date to all your lists, posters in your workplace, flyers at events and non-site events, big gatherings, bring us in to speak to your organization, reach out to other organizations you think would be in support, move passive allies to active. And there's a poster you can print out for the River Run, and it's coming up September 23. So if you haven't taken time off yet, with your job, maybe now's the time to ask for that day off. Bring your kids, take them a day out of school just to come be there. And your children will be the next leaders. They'll be the next engineers, or they'll be the next scientists that's going to help Grassy. So if they come to the rally, it might impact them, that they would want to help us someday figure this mess out. Next slide. That's the end.
Yes, I think that's the end of it. Thank you so much, Judy, for such an impactful presentation. The stories, the photographs definitely resonated. I mean, we can see all the hearts coming up. It's really beautiful. One of the things that I was hearing from you a lot was the impact of the young people in the community on how they've done the great movements. Before we jump into the Q&A section, I wondered if you wanted to show the video of, since we do have a bit of time, did you want to show that video as well of the young people, the Amnesty video? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I will do that up.
Okay.
In one moment.
You said it's 4 minutes long?
It's about 4 minutes. Yes.
Okay.
And I think my colleagues will also put that in the chat.
Kids, or literally you.
So I'm just going to share that. Give me one.
We're only kids. We're literally youth having mercury symptoms already from our lake, our home.
That's why my friends call me Freddie Mercury. Because I sing Bohemian Rhapsody a lot.
I have many health conditions that I shouldn't be dealing with at my age as a Canadian.
It's been a half a century since 10 tons of toxic mercury was dumped into our rivers. It's poisoned the fish and had a devastating impact on our people.
I have trouble speaking, like I have speech impairments. I have learning disabilities. Bonjour, being again.
Mamma mia, mamma mia.
People call me Darwin, but my traditional name is Brown Eagle. Welcome to Grassy Narrows.
Grassy Narrows! Grassy Narrows!
Or as we call it, a Subscriptiogang. We live in a First Nations reserve in Western Ontario, Canada. We call ourselves the Anishinaabe. We've been living on these shores for as long as anyone can remember. Today is a special day because we're at the Grassy Narrows powwow.
The powwow brings a lot of people together. Like, it brings other communities and, it brings people from the outside.
It's where the whole community comes together to celebrate what it means to be a Anishinaabe.
Are you gonna swallow my camera?
During the 1960s and 70s, a paper mill upstream was using mercury to make paper. They dumped over 10 tons of mercury into our river. It's Canada's worst health crisis, but the government wants to keep it quiet. We're not going to let them.
We will not stand by and let people die. Not today, not no more. This changes now.
What makes it worse is that the government knew about the poisoning for decades but chose to ignore it. There's been a half a century of denial and inaction.
People did us dirty. We're all victims of mercury poisoning.
Mercury poisoning attacks the nervous system. Many people suffer from learning disabilities, numbness, coordination problems, speech problems, and loss of vision.
I'm starting to feel numbness right here. I can start to feel like my bones ache right here. Yeah, see, do you see my pinky there? Like, do you see how it's moving? I'm literally, like, not doing anything.
We've had to work hard to keep our traditions alive. Fishing has fed us for thousands of years. At one time, it created good jobs for our community.
Once the mercury been dumped, all the camps shut down, and people stopped coming to the reserve because of that issue. And the government said, you can't fish on the river because this high amounts of mercury been dumped into your system.
We were made to go out and fish and go hunting and all that. We never got the experience of how it was a long time ago, fishing freely without getting sick of something.
I kind of feel like we lost a big part of ourselves due to that dumping, It's quite sad to see, We were such a happy community, we loved our families and that, Now it's affected people because us being told we're sick.
But it didn't have to be this way. The youth of Grassy should be living very different lives.
I want the youth to have the best future they can ever have, better than our future, because being sick is a rough life, it's a sad life.
The government did something wrong. They destroyed thousands of lives. And the kids shouldn't say today, oh, I'm poisoned by mercury, That's a life a Canadian shouldn't deal with,
We need cleaner, healthier rivers and care for all of us that are affected by mercury poisoning.
It's just amazing to see how far, our voices could get. I want them to get even further.
And that's where you come in. With your help, we'll take this fight global.
We can't stop now. We've come so far.
I always find that video to be so impactful. Of course, the link for that video is also in the chat for those who want to save it on YouTube or share it. And also, I highly encourage everybody to use the Q&A and to put in their questions, or you can put it in the chat and we will also try to follow that, but it's always easier when it's in the Q&A section. So we already have one question from Judy, for Judy, if you'd be able to answer. I'm sure we've all heard about the trade war with within Canada and the US. So somebody would like to know, Rochelle, if you can speak to how the trade war might impact the peoples or perhaps the activism that you're doing.
The trade wars. That's kind of out of my league, and I'm not really sure because my kind of role in this is like the really grassroots activism, and I have no idea. I hope somebody can answer that for me because I can't.
I imagine it will affect the community much like it affects all of us. I mean, prices will go up for everything, as it always does. So, I'm not sure we can all answer that with a great confidence, but there are many, many more questions. Thank you so much, everybody. We have a question from Matthew as well, and this is about the Mercury Care Home. Is this considered a residence? Specifically for people, or is it maybe, I think if I understand correctly, is this a temporary facility, or is this a residence for people?
It's going to be a residence for mercury sufferers. People in Grassy Narrows suffer from mercury poisoning. So it's going to just give them quality of life and care as they deteriorate. And it's a sad building, but it's going to be a place where they can be taken care of. There's such things that are really high risk. Like for example, for me, like I'm a mercury sufferer, and sometimes I choke on my own food, and because the mechanism in my brain to know how to swallow is getting damaged. So it's not that I've lost like how to swallow, it's just that the mechanism in my brain kind of short circuits. And so like I hear that a lot from my people is that they have a hard time to eat. So the Mercury Care Home will be a place where, if somebody's choking, that they can be saved right away, they can be helped. They even talked about hydrotherapy. I think it's water therapy, and it's actual moving water that's in a tub. And one of the things that happens is that we get neuropathy, where we lose the sensation in our low, like our limbs, and then like I get burning feet all the time. And so like I have to have a fan in my room all the time, even in the winter, to blow cold air on my feet because it just cools down the burning sensation. I don't have diabetes. So that's what the Mercury Care Home will be. And it's not just for elders, it's also for young people. There's a lot of young people suffering with mercury poisoning too.
Thank you for sharing that. It's always harrowing. I've watched a few other videos as well on how this affects people, and also I believe the gentleman you mentioned earlier about having ALS and all those other diseases. I believe there was a video on that as well, and it was hard to watch, and it's hard to believe that in today we still have this kind of thing happening and we do nothing, or our governments rather do nothing about it. Next question from without a name was as a question on the paper mill. Was the paper mill ever required to do any cleanup?
This is one of the tactics of industry is they sell the mill or they sell the company, and then they don't become liable for any damages they do. So a lot of companies change hands, and that's the thing with this Dryden mill is they've never paid, and they're actually a very valuable business, I guess, and for the government, they send millions of dollars to them. So it's still operating like fully 100%. So it's still going really well. And I guess that's where we as consumers have that responsibility too, like to watch where the products that we buy are like not extracting from, like that will hurt the First Nation community. Grassy is not the only place that's fighting environmental devastation. There's like places all over Turtle Island. I hear like the pipelines are still trying to go through even underwater, like even under one of the Great Lakes, like that. Like it's so scary how industry it's just like they don't think about the future. So these companies are thriving all over Turtle Island, and it's because of us consumers and how we consume things from the land, from the earth. And you go into Toronto and you see all these like high rises going up. To me, it's really scary. It's like a big wheel that's turning that can never be stopped. So like when you talk about the Dryden mill, well, it's going full force. So it's really thriving. It's doing really well.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you mention that it was partially funded by the government, the provincial government or the federal government sending money or something?
No, I think the way the Canadian and provincial government keeps these industries going is they give them permits, and these industries have to apply for permits to continue operating, and they have to do reports of the chemicals they spill into the water. So they're hand in hand, like industry and government are hand in hand because it's all about money. And I'm not sure about them funding the Dryden mill, but I'm pretty sure they rubber stamp everything that goes on in there.
Right, to give them permission to continue operating as they did. Okay.
Yeah.
The next question is from Janie Edwards. This is about Amnesty having a letter writing a petition around Grassy Narrows. I believe one of my colleagues will be able to answer this if they can give you that information, perhaps in the Q&A section. That would be great. We'll then move on to Christine. Is anything being done to clean up the methyl mercury in the water right now?
8 years we've had the engineers studying the river. As we speak, they're doing sampling on the English Wabigoon River system. It's a huge river system, massive, but the company that's working to get the profile of the river and where the most toxic places are, it's taking them 8 years, and I'm hoping we're getting closer for the river to be cleaned up. They already have really amazing ideas, these engineers, of how they're going to do that. And I guess one of the fear-mongering tactics that the government has done is that, okay, they're going to stir up the mercury and it's going to be reintroduced into the river system. But the engineers have told us that they have ways of keeping the mercury in one place. They have like these curtains on the river that they put, and another curtain that blocks it as they clean the river, or they divert the water till they can clean that mercury out of the water. So they have all these fantastic ideas of how to clean it, but so far it's not being cleaned. We're still in the sampling stages.
So when it comes to this cleanup, would this just be Grassy Narrows, like your community themselves managing the whole project, or is there any support from the government at all?
The 85 million is in a trust fund that's in Toronto, Ontario, and there's a panel that takes care of that trust fund, and First Nations sit on that trust fund, and they apply for funds each year through there. So that was the original 85 million. I think we're down to 50 million with the 8 years of sampling that's been happening, and I think in the end it's going to be like 140 million to actually clean the river. So it's like a massive endeavor, to clean the river. It's a huge river system. If you ever come this way, like try and take a ride on a boat of the river system. It's massive, but it's also very toxic. We tested lakes, and out of 30 lakes, I think only a handful had no mercury. And the watershed goes from here to Lake Winnipeg to Hudson's Bay. So it goes, because of the way the earth moves, the watershed goes up to Hudson's Bay.
Oh, that's a huge project as well.
Mhm.
Well, we'll move on to the next question from Paula. Is the mercury poisoning situation improving, or do you think there will continue to be new people needing the care home going into the future? Certainly hope not.
We have a really amazing doctor working with us, Dr. Donna Mergler, and she's been very instrumental in. There's like a strong denial of us even being poisoned by mercury. There's like a lot of racist remarks I'm not gonna say. But I was like in one neurologist testing, and that neurologist had really, really bad comments to me. And then when Donna Mergler came along, she's a world-renowned mercury expert. She helped us do a community health survey, which verified that we are actually poisoned by mercury. And we're after a child and youth and young adult health survey. And the reason why I asked for that was because Dr. Donna Mergler said that no, you only get poisoned by eating the fish, and it doesn't get transferred into the child unless you're pregnant, and then you eat a poisoned fish, then it goes to the baby. But what I was seeing was that there's people that are poisoned, like a mom and dad that had been poisoned by mercury, and then the children that were born, after when they stop eating fish, are still showing signs of mercury poisoning. So that's another thing we're after right now, is to do that child, youth, young adult health survey. A lot of skin problems, high anxiety, stomach problems. And then I heard of a child that was 5 years old. Well, he's about 15 now. But when he was 5 years old, he had Crohn's disease, and it's supposed to be like a more mature adult age people that get Crohn's disease, but he's only 5. So these are sicknesses I see in the children, which is why we're still working with Donna Mergler to continue to understand mercury poisoning. And mercury poisoning is relatively unknown. And so as we go, like Grassy is kind of like spearheading this, kind of like opening the information about how mercury affects us. We're like living examples of mercury poisoning.
Well, uh, again, hard to hear that, but also, I suppose in some ways we're grateful that there's a good doctor that who works.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, maybe even in our participants and myself certainly, very familiar with not being believed and not to be having our illness taken seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always, I think, a blessing to have at least a good doctor. The next question is this who's first? Okay, we'll go with Rosemary here first. Maybe perhaps you wouldn't know the exact number, but they're asking exactly how many people are affected at this time in Grassy Narrows with mercury poisoning specifically.
We would say 100% are poisoned. And I've even seen like children that were scooped up in the 60 scoop. These are children that were apprehended in Grassy, and they're taken into homes in Southern Ontario, Minnesota, and now they're showing effects of poison, and they're like adults now, maybe 40s or 50 years old, and they're really struggling with a lot of different ailments. So and now I know this one lady who's in Minnesota. her kids are showing symptoms of mercury poisoning, even though she's raised them in Minnesota their whole lives. This kid had a seizure in the school, and like her kid is 12 years old, and so like those kind of things we're seeing. So I would say 100% are poisoned.
Hard numbered, but naturally, mercury poisoning is so pervasive, I would say. I will take two more questions. While we do have time until 8:30, I also want to talk a little bit about our actions that including River Run. I will also ask you about that myself. Somebody asks, Nancy, do fish and animals still show signs of sickness today?
Yeah, they do. That was one of the things when we started this whole thing, like 1999, we started doing our fish sampling. And I remember, 1997, this Health Canada guy came to Grassy and he announced, oh, there's no more mercury in the water. And I would have believed him, but then the nurse practitioner said that was there. There's only 3 of us in the room, or 4 of us. And she asked him, well, how come you're still warning in the Minister of Environment pamphlet to only eat so much fish? When she said that, that's when everything started going. And I was a daycare administrator then, and I saw the children being sick. And I approached Dr. Leanne Simpson and the late Dr. Patricia Sellers, who was an aquatic scientist. And I said, I need help. We need to find out if there's still mercury in the fish. And we started doing like samples of just a few. We only got like $25,000 grant, so we did like a really small sampling. And then the guy at Health Canada, a different guy, he said, I need 1,000 fish for me to believe that the fish are poisoned by mercury. So in the end, we did like 3 more studies or 2 more studies, and then in total we did 3, and the last one's 2010. And he went quiet because every time we brought fish, there's high levels of mercury in there, and then that's how everything kind of started snowballing, realizing that the mercury was still highly present in the river system. So I know that's like how long ago is that?
16 years?
2010, 16 years ago. So 16 years, and now we're here. So I think people are starting to realize we're not telling lies. Like, this is the truth. This is what's happening. The river system's poisoned. The fish are still poisoned. Yeah.
Of course, I mean, even with fish, the testing of the fish, it takes a lot of funding as well. For those asking about actions, this webinar will run until around 8:30, but right after this last question, we will be talking about actions. We really appreciate the patience. The last question is about any legal actions, if there have been any legal actions taken against the industry to seek compensation, the mill itself, perhaps.
Yeah, you can Google Grassy Narrows sues Canadian and provincial government, and that was in 2024. So we are in a litigation right now. We have 2 really powerful legal companies that believe in us, that are helping us. And we're still in that, and hopefully with this protest in September, it's going to make it even stronger for our stand.
And yes, I believe the information is also being shared by people, our colleagues as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us through this question. So the last thing that we'll talk about is the actions that you can take, and maybe even, although Judy, you've already talked about River Run and how important it is, maybe you can also talk about what it means to you that people show up and actually spend time with in Toronto supporting your community. maybe we can talk about that for a second, and then I will talk about the other actions as well.
Okay. It started raining, so I hope you could still hear me.
Yes.
But it's really important to my people that you come and show up, only because it's not really the action itself, but it's that my people see that there's people that believe in them, that there's humanity, that people do care about us, because so many years we felt very ignored or not seen, that we're suffering. So I encourage people to come to the river run and to just be there. Bring your dogs, bring your kids, bring your snacks and, just be with us, stand with us, sit with us. Miigwech.
Miigwech, miigwech, Judy. It's so wonderful to hear from you. Thank you for your time. And everyone in the chat is talking about how much they appreciate you giving your time here and talking about your community's experiences. We won't keep you. I know you're busy. Your community is very busy as well. Really, truly appreciate your time. Thank you, miigwech, miigwech.
Miigwech. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for showing up. Okay, bye.
Now, thank you, Judy. I will just quickly share our screen to show you a couple of other actions that you can take as well. Sorry, my bad. There we go. First, of course, River Run, you've been hearing about it. I believe there's a lot of resources in the chat as to the links that you can go to sign up for River Run. If you're outside Toronto, you can also sign up in the RSVP. You can mention that you would need transportation. There's also support there. Please go to freegrassy.net for exploring the history of Grassy Narrows and learning more about River Run as well. Highly recommend doing that. And yes, as Judy said, if you have work, please take some time off. This is a really worthy cause for you to give your time to. Second, we also have a petition for demanding action from Ontario and BC for action for the wildfire responses that have been honestly atrocious for our provinces. Because it has been shown that if our emergency response teams and our emergency response funding was better, we would perhaps have avoided the great deal of devastation that many communities, especially in Ontario, for instance, Collins First Nation, has faced because of the wildfires. So please do take some time to take action on that. Maybe write a letter, talk to your MP, talk to your provincial member of parliament as well, especially provinces, of course, because this is a provincial issue. And thirdly, we have a letter writing campaign at our team, on the specialized team, for clean water. To this day, there are dozens of communities across Ontario and across the country that are still under drinking water advisories. So these advisories can be anything from pathogens in the water to poor sewage and treatment plants. So there is no excuse. This has been ongoing for 30 years. One of the communities that we're putting on the letter writing has been under advisory for more than 30 years now. And our provinces and our federal government has no excuse. And if you've not heard about it already, there is a bill in Parliament supporting this right to clean drinking water, but it is being opposed by many parties, including provinces, who think this will get in the way of their projects, get in the way of their industry. Highly, highly recommend that you take a moment to read on how to get involved and maybe register for the letter writing campaign, because once Parliament reopens, as they will, we have to start writing all over again. And every letter counts. It really does make a difference. It really does make a difference if we call your MPs as well. So I will stop sharing my screen, but every bit of information is in the chat. Please do follow. Please do talk about Grassy Narrows, talk about all of these communities being affected by wildfires and also unclean water, and support every Indigenous community's basic human rights to clean water and healthful living. And of course, against these policies that make climate change worse, affects all of us. And everything from industry to data centers, everything affects how we live our lives and how comfortable we are. So I think we have had a great conversation, and thank you everybody in the chat who's talking about their experiences, who's talking about how they want to support Grassy Narrows as well. All of those resources will also be emailed to you after the webinar ends. We will send a follow-up email. We'll also send you our slides as well, so you can check those out. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. And yes, if you have any follow-up questions as well, you can get in touch with my team as well. I'm putting my email in the chat. So you can also get in touch with us there. AI Can Indigenous Rights. And also we're on Instagram. So you can also get in touch with us there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us so much.